Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and to this video in which we are going to talk about the ColourPop Element of Surprise palette. So if that sounds like fun to you, then just keep on watching. So this palette I did receive from BoxyCharm in this last month of April. I was very excited to receive this particular palette because it does have colors inside that I am interested in. Based on the other choices of palettes, there were 4 other possibilities. This was the one I was most attracted to. This palette does run for $16 on the ColourPop website, but like I said, I did not purchase it at full price. I received it in my BoxyCharm. And I will link that video up in the cards for you in case you missed it. Also, this palette does have just over 10 grams of product, and it does have 12 pans of eyeshadow here. Get a load of this bold beauty, the perfect mix of edgy dramatic with a girly twist and bold pops of color. This baby has you covered for the season. Our first palette with all 4 finishes, matte, metallic, satin, and duochrome, makes it so easy to shake up the scene. Now, a couple of other pieces of information that you need to know about this palette. All of the ColourPop palettes do have the shades listed on the back. However, this is not a mirror image. This does not mean that this shade, Blank Canvas, is on the other side of this palette, if that makes sense. So, you see that this one right here is in the bottom left-hand corner, and that means that the shade called Blank Canvas is in this bottom left-hand corner when you look at the palette directly on. I will insert for you right here what I'm talking about, a picture of the palette and the shade names reversed so you can look dead on and see what all the shade names are. And I'm gonna try very hard not to mix them up during this video. I kind of wish they would just print the names on the palette and do away with all the confusion. That is interesting in regards to this palette is that 3 of the shades are listed as, quote, not intended for use in the immediate eye area. I'm not for sure what that means. I will get back to you on that. However, I intend to contact ColourPop, and that seems really odd to me for an eyeshadow. Where exactly are you going to wear an eyeshadow if not in the immediate eye area? I don't know if they're talking about, you know, maybe don't put this near the waterline. I just don't understand that. Thank you to a subscriber, Sammy, who made me aware of that, and I was able to go and look at the ColourPop website. Here's the other issue I have with that. You would not know that information unless you were in the habit of looking at the ingredients for individual eyeshadow shades on websites, because that's the only place that it is listed on the ColourPop website. Is if you go into the ingredients on this palette, there are 3 of them at the bottom of the list of ingredients that say not intended for use in the immediate eye area. So again, I ask, why make a shadow that's not intended for use in the eye area, and also why kind of bury that information? I mean, there are people who have very sensitive eyes and skin. I'm blessed that I'm not one of those people, but those people might purchase this palette and have a horrible reaction because the information is not readily available on the website unless, like I said, you're in the habit of looking at ingredients like I am, and apparently Sammy is as well. So, very important piece of information right there. I'm going to show you which shades they are. The first one is this purple or plum right here called Silk Street, as well as the pink shade underneath, which is named Opulent, as well as the shade that I showed you before, which is called Blank Canvas, which is a maroon or burgundy matte right here. I'm going to swatch for you a couple of my favorites as I normally do. All right, so the first shade is this shade right here, which is called Feels. And here it is. I think it has a warm orangey peachy shift to it. All of these duochromes are somewhat sheer and need to be built up and or layered over a matte shade. The next shade is going to be this rusty shade down here, which is called Peace of Mind. It is what I'm wearing on my eyes today, so I will give you a gander at that look in just a second. And then the last duochrome is the shade, this is so confusing, Subdue. And it is this purple shade right here. The shift on this is purple and blue, I would say. Maybe a titch of green or yellow in there, but it's right here. Again, not completely opaque, any of these, but they are buildable, and you could put them over the top of a matte, which is usually what I choose to do. I'll give you a little gander at my eye look today. I have that lightest duochrome on my inner corners. I have that rust shade all over the lid. Yeah, and then my other favorite shade is this bright pink shade, of course, which again is called Opulent, and it is one of the shades in the palette that is considered not intended for immediate eye area usage. So this is what it looks like. It definitely was one of the shades that drew me in to wanting this to be the palette that I got this month. So let's go ahead and get into the demo. I did 3 looks with this palette this week. I hope you enjoy the demos, and then we'll come back for my final thoughts and review on the Element of Surprise palette by ColourPop. I did use this palette each time with the Urban Decay Primer Potion. This is the anti-aging version, and it performed really well that way, as well as it performed on an everyday basis with just concealer on my lids to hide any discoloration. Full disclosure though, I do not have oily eyelids, even though the rest of my face tends to be oily. So just keep that in mind. There were a few shades that I felt like stained the eyelids, which was this plum shade here called Silk Street. Good grief. And also this maroon or burgundy shade up here called Blank Canvas. Those two definitely left a little bit of staining on the eyelids, but again, that's not a deal breaker for me. I come to expect that from nicely pigmented shadows, and these are. I think the mattes are just as nice as the shimmers and duochromes in this palette. I do wish we had a slightly lighter matte shade. The only real brow bone highlight shade that you have in here is this shade called Feels, which again was that light duochrome shade, and it does work okay for a brow bone highlight, but it's not my favorite. I would not prefer generally a duochrome for a brow bone highlight, and there really isn't anything else in this palette that you can use. This is the lightest shade. The other thing I would say about this palette is that a lot of the actual color payoff from these shadows looks different than it does in the pan. This one's pretty true to color, this one right here, which again is the lightest shade in the palette. But this one here actually leans a little to the red or the orange, almost like a terracotta shade. And it, you know, it really just looks kind of tan in the palette. And then this one right here is, it does look yellow in the pan, but it looks very yellow and orange on the actual eyes. So just be aware of that when you're building any look. The shimmers are every bit as good as the duochromes and the mattes. Again though, this looks very much rust and orange in the palette, and I think it translates a little more red on the eyes. Otherwise I might not have used so much of it on the lids. But I like how all the looks turned out. Obviously I did a pink look, and then I tried to do a more neutral look with this duochrome here, and then today I used, you know, this rust color all over the lid. This purple duochrome is absolutely gorgeous layered over this pink shade right here. So this pink can be a really nice base for some of the duochromes, especially this one, and this one would be lovely layered over this pink because they both have a pinkish and or cool shift to them. So with this cool pink, it's just banging. Overall, I am, again, a little overwhelmed by the shade names. It's just really hard for my brain to switch back and forth, especially when talking about this on YouTube. And also, I'm just really confused about the fact that they have 3 shades in here that they're saying is not intended for use around the immediate eye area. Again, I am going to contact ColourPop and ask them exactly what that means so I can give you guys some clarification, probably in my BoxyCharm video here coming up when I review this again. But I do really like this. I like the shades that were given here. It's a nice variety with a couple of pops of color. I think this is very much a multi-seasonal palette because we do have some light and or bright pops of color in here. Otherwise, you know, you have some nice neutrals in here for sure. And then I also really like that they have all 4 formulas in this palette. This is my first ColourPop palette. I'm thinking it will not be my last because I do really love this formula. But I'm so glad that in this palette, and that was part of the reason I was hoping for this one, I'm just really glad that I got to try all 4 finishes of eyeshadow that ColourPop carries in a pressed form. For whatever that's worth, I do really love this palette. I definitely will continue to use it, and now I am even more intrigued to check out other ColourPop palettes. Do you have any other ColourPop palettes, or what did you get in your BoxyCharm this month? Because I would love to know. I hope you enjoyed the demos as well as this video, and may all of your makeup days be beautiful makeup days. Bye!